Hey everyone, welcome back to another great end of a week on a Friday. I am Eric Rosenberg. I am General Manager of America, and we are talking today on a strategy session, basically called Ask Me Anything, where we'll focus on creative retention for long-term success. During this session, I encourage you, our audience, to ask the questions in the chat, and we'll adjust them as best as possible with our amazing panel. Today, we're sitting with some real industry experts: David Barnard, developer advocate for RevenueCat; Alexandre Gorius, mobile lifestyle expert; and the one and only Nancy Roberts, CMO and Managing Director, North America of YouAppy. Before we get into the session, I would definitely love to hear some fun facts about all of you. Let's start off with David. Fire.
Yeah, so fun fact, I was the first person in line at La Cantera Apple Store in San Antonio to buy the original iPhone. And so my picture was in the paper the next day and everything else. So I come to this industry as a fanboy, and it's actually kind of fun. I mean, I still consider apps and tech as a hobby, which does kind of challenge my work-life balance where I'm reading and thinking about tech 24/7, but I really am still just a fan of tech and a fan of apps, and still run apps on the side, even as a developer advocate at RevenueCat.
Amazing, cool story. Let's hear from Alexander. What's your fun fact?
Yeah, so initially I was working in finance, but then I met a strong growth marketer in Berlin called Kevin Bravo, and he was also a magician and a hypnotist. So I'm not sure if I work in the mobile industry today by free will or hypnosis, but what I can say is that since then I've been working for dozens of companies, and I've been loving it so far.
Cool. Thank you. And Nancy, how about you? Give us a fun fact. I know you got a bunch of them. Just one.
Just one fun fact. Okay. Let's see. I'm not sure if this artist lives in Eric's neighborhood, but I once high-fived Drake when he showed up to the restaurant where I was hosting an industry dinner.
Question is, did he high-five you back?
He did. He did. He has very soft hands.
Maybe he soaks in palm olive when he washes the dishes. I don't know. But anyway, thank you guys so much. Great opening. I have a question I want to ask all you guys before we get into the chat, and it's kind of revolves around like the world we live in. So I'll kind of start off with you, Nancy. So what do you love about mobile, and why have you been here so long?
Ooh, Eric, you're aging me. So I mean, obviously I love mobile. I've been working in mobile since 2015. It's really about the people and how resilient this industry is. You know, when I started in mobile, we weren't even talking about fraud. It was just about driving volume. Remember burst campaigns? So you know, starting back in 2015, we weren't even having discussions around, I think we were even still using pixels. I don't know, before they, you know, were relabeled as callbacks. But to now, you know, we're trying to figure out SCAD 4.0. Like I don't even remember how long ago 1.0 was, and that was the big thing. But we keep reinventing ourselves and keep reiterating, and we move past whatever that issue is together. And it's always great to see familiar faces like yours and, you know, others that have been a part of this mission since, you know, the early days.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. David, question for you. So what's your answer? Why have you been in mobile, and what keeps you here?
Well, I mean, I kind of answered that in my opening. I'm a fan. And so after buying the first iPhone in 2007, I was just completely blown away, especially actually seeing my dad use it. So he was in his 50s at the time, had kind of always struggled with technology. And he took to the iPhone like a duck to water. You know, the intuitive multi-touch interface, you know, gestures, being able to actually, you know, touch and move on the screen what you're doing. I was just blown away by the iPhone, and just saw it as a whole new paradigm in, you know, human computer interaction. And so I founded my company in 2008. Pretty soon after that, and have been in mobile ever since. And again, I mean, I'm here and stick around both as a fan, and it's provided a pretty good living for my family. So yeah.
Touche. I also have an iPhone 3GS upstairs, so I know exactly what you're talking about. And Alexander, what about you?
Yeah, same. I've always been a fan of tech since a very young age. I was building my own computers when I was young, while composing, not building entirely. But after this period in finance, I was really happy to find again this tech culture and all the news that I was reading that I was now part of. And now it's about, as Nancy said, about people now. All my friends are working in mobile, so I wouldn't live alone without them.
Cool, thank you. So I just saw something coming from our chat. It says, basically, in your opinion, what are your most powerful channels for driving retention? Alex, let's start off with you.
Yeah, I think the answer is going to be all of them together. The cross-channel strategies are always the most impactful, just because each channel is really completing or are really completing each other. So it's like creating a sport team. You would not create a team with only defenders. You need attackers and midfield as well. But if you have to pick one, I think the attackers would definitely be in-app messages that bring, in my experience, the most conversions.
Amazing. Nancy, what are your thoughts?
I agree with Alex. I think driving retention doesn't come from a single powerful channel, but really the mix and leveraging the mix of channels and having a strong brand to support it. Utilizing, your lifecycle marketing team, push notifications, buying media and other apps. Marketers really need to find where their users are spending their time and exist within their ecosystem. So it could be CTV, it could be social, it could be mobile apps, or a mix of them. But retention really comes with the good product that leverages its high communicated value.
And finally, David, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'll answer your question a little more directly. I mean, multi-channel is obviously, the best way to drive retention. But I do think, especially for smaller apps and apps with limited budgets, you need to kind of have a prioritization framework. And so, and even large companies, you still need to kind of pick a top channel. And I think for most apps, that is still email. Push notification are getting harder and harder for people to see. I mean, iOS 16 changed notifications. Google keeps changing notifications. I know I've been missing important notifications, much less, the kind of retention push. So I think, when you're working in these multi-channels, you should still be kind of thinking in prioritization, and make sure you grab an email. That's something, in my own apps I've done terribly. I have never, ever collected a single email in any of my apps. And so, I think you kind of need to go back and make sure you're covering the basics, and email is probably the top. And then like Alex said, in-app messages are probably the top performing, but people have to be in the app. And so, you want a way to reach them when they're not in the app as well. And so I think email should still probably be, the top priority for most apps.
Cool, thank you. This one's pretty cool. What's the more creative field? Customer acquisition or customer retention? Nancy, let's start off with you.
That's a really good question. I think I would lean towards both of them being very creative, but if I had to pick one, I would say customer retention. You not only have to figure out what motivates the customer to stay or come back, but also how to create the ads that'll resonate with them, looking at the data, creating these segments, and then really targeting how and which channels you're going to be using to retain your customers. So I would say customer retention would be the more creative field.
Alex, how about you?
Yes, so I'm no US specialist, so I'm already biased. But I would say customer retention, because of the technical aspect of it, you have so many technical parameters to take into account. There's HTML with emails and in-app messages. There is API if you want to personalize your messages. there are all the tool integration requirements with events, attributes, and deep links. And all this tech, well, you need to use it because it's costly, but also because you can do a lot with it. And you need to be creative to make the most out of this technology and personalize your messages to users. And
then David, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I agree with both of them that retention is a super creative field, but I'll pick user acquisition to be the odd man out. But I do have a little story around this. So I recently talked to Andrew Maguire from Elevate Labs on the podcast. And one of the things he talked about was that in their drive to hit cash flow positive this year, which I don't know, achieved, I think in the spring, they actually involved the whole company on their user acquisition efforts and used their content design team, their marketing design team, got all the creativity within the whole company focused on, how do we build the kind of creatives that are going to attract the customers who are actually going to subscribe, who are going to stay retained, who are going to help us achieve return on ad spend. And it was an incredibly company-wide creative effort that took them from burning cash to actually cash flow positive. And I don't remember the exact numbers, but on the podcast he actually shared some of their I think it's like a 7-day return on ad spend, which is just crazy. Like they're doing incredible work, and it took whole company creativity to get there. So I think user acquisition can be an incredibly creative field.
So this is actually, I want to read this. This just came in from Jason Smith, and you can answer this. So what do you look at? What should you be focused at? Weekly, monthly, or daily? What's more important?
Weekly, monthly, or daily, what?
For retention.
Oh, so this is an interesting question. So, and it's something I love talking about. With subscription apps, and that's kind of what I focus on. That doesn't necessarily matter. You don't need to focus on daily, monthly, weekly, or any specific metric. You need to find the metric that matters. And the example I use all the time is Visco app. I don't use it daily. I don't use it weekly. I don't even use it monthly. But when I take a photo that I really care about, it goes into Visco because I want it to look its best, and I love their tools. It's super easy. I have a few presets I really like. And so even though it may be quarterly, sometimes when I'm on vacation, it's like hours a day if I'm going through a whole ton of photos. But for subscription apps, it's about delivering that value, not about daily, weekly, or monthly engagement. It's value engagement, not a specific metric. And so that's what you need to figure out, that kind of KPI for your individual subscription app.
Amazing. Thank you.
I would say in gaming, it's really different though, right? Like in gaming, you do have to look at that daily engagement or the day 7, day 30 type of engagement and really analyze every step along the way. But, I agree with Visco. I personally use Lightroom, and I opened it last night, surprisingly, but it's because I had to lighten up a photo because I have a preset in there that I really like. And so I think, with those types of apps, video editing app, photo editing apps, you're really looking for moments and not so much like a daily or a monthly metric.
Cool. I think on that topic, there's a very great piece from Tessa Miskel about the natural usage habits that will help you find the right frequency of usage of your average users. And then you can start from there and personalize after to each user.
Amazing. Something else just came in. It says here, how did post-IDFA changes affect your retention strategies? Nancy, you can start off first. I'm curious.
I would say it hasn't really changed retargeting. So, UAppy, we do mobile app retargeting. It changed it a little bit, of course, because the pool is much more shallow now than it was before. We don't have all the deterministic values that we used to have. But through the use of first-party data, enhancing the data and data modeling, we can use things like on-device signals. Driving retention it's a little bit more complicated, but I wouldn't say that it's really changed a lot of how we did it. It made us reinvent and pivot a little bit more.
Totally. Let's go, Alex. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, on post-install product and CRM strategies, I think it didn't change much on my side. Maybe it lowered the retention rates in general, because then UA managers might have less data and less the ability to optimize for down of the funnel conversions. But overall, on the day-to-day work, it didn't change much on my side.
And David, the man with the best mic on the panel. What's your thoughts?
Well, I think for really big apps, it did change some things. With that deterministic IDFA, a lot of the biggest apps in the App Store had pretty sophisticated strategies around the targeting that they were doing on Facebook and other platforms to know exactly what ad was seen, what platform they came from, what bucket they were in. And then they were doing a lot more customization in app, customizing the app, customizing the retention messaging, customizing the retargeting. When you have that much data and you have a big team that can, build tooling around it, there was a lot of that going on with some of the biggest apps in the App Store. And so that's a huge change. And so now I think what we're seeing is a big shift to apps actually collecting that more data up front, asking more questions, doing a little bit more kind of onboarding customization and stuff to kind of find those things out instead of being able to know them from the ad tracking.
Cool. We got about 3 minutes. So this one just came in. Can you share your insight on how to improve not only app retention, but what works best for apps in a specific industry? You guys are getting some questions, man. Let's start off with Alex first.
Yeah, in general, for all industries, there's product and CRM, and in products, you should focus on the onboarding. That's where you will get the biggest impact on activation, and that will be impacted on the rest of the lifecycle funnel. There are also some content apps that are able to generate daily or weekly fresh content. I'm thinking of Headspace and the Wake Up. I think it's a masterpiece in that area. And in CRM, it's really about nailing the experimentation process. In the end, all companies will see different results depending on the campaign. And so there are 3 pillars for that. First, send less one-offs and focus on automated campaigns, because you want results when you're not working, actually. Then make sure to test your campaigns against a control group, because that's the only way to know if they work. And finally, get rid of the open rates and click rates and focus on conversion rates that are business related, so revenue or your core action.
Amazing. Nancy, what are your thoughts on that?
I would say it's never too early to start retargeting. Don't wait for your user to lapse before engaging in that re-engagement strategy, because apps are so dynamic. There are so many different verticals. There's an app for everything. You really have to find that cadence of usage with your users and really understand your user persona. So I would say, even before you start in user acquisition campaigns and retention campaigns, like really creating and drilling down who these user personas are, how they will use your apps, leveraging focus groups, so that you have a plan and understand what's coming from the other side versus just, a very myopic view of how you're developing your products and then seeing the responses afterwards. So yeah, whether it's an organic, attributed, non-attributed user, you have to be, really segmenting them and delivering the right message using your lifecycle marketing team, utilizing email, push notifications, in-app messaging, and just, really investing in that re-engagement early.
Cool. And then David, the man with the best mic, let's hear your thoughts.
Sure. So the kind of broadest advice I can give is to focus on the value. So no number of emails or push notifications is going to bring people back to your app unless they've connected with the value you're trying to deliver. So if you're a game and it's entertainment, make sure you understand what people find entertaining, why they find it entertaining, and connect them with that engagement and entertainment as soon as possible. With this subscription app, we're talking about photo apps. The value to me of VSCO is that it makes the best photos I take and the photos I care about look even better. And so, that's the value I'm getting. And so in onboarding and retention campaigns and everything else they do, they should be focused on help. And that's one persona. You want to understand the different personas and the different value those different personas get. But from my persona, is reconnecting me with that value, and then making sure in the onboarding and in just the entire app experience, I'm connecting to that value that matters to me, that I'm willing to pay for, that it's going to remind me to come back to. And again, no number of emails just marketing the app is going to do that. And that's where even the emails, you need to focus on the value of those personas, not just, hitting them with all sorts of random marketing messages.
So before we go, it's got a thing, amazing insights. You guys have been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing the panel with me today. Great insight, great everything. Nice to know you. Have an amazing Friday, great weekend.